Hey everyone, I'm going to show you how I make my Batman cowls, like these. In this video, I'm remaking my Batman Year 1 cowl, because that's the one people keep asking me for. My cowls are a 3D printed face shell with a fabric mask glued down to it, with the ears being foam. These are the materials you're going to need for it. Any sewing machine, black thread, pretty much any 3D printer. I have a Bambu A1, a regular printer, black and silver sharpies, big construction paper, your fabric. I'm using the same pleather as my cape, a good pair of scissors, spray adhesive, white spray paint, black plastidip, super glue, PC fan mesh, sandpaper, 5mm foam, and 2mm foam. First up, you're going to need this pattern in face shell from Jarson on Etsy. I use this pattern as a base, and this is the shell and eye pieces I use for all my cowls. You can't follow the tutorial without it. Next up, I recommend you sew a test mask with the base pattern just to get a feel for it. This is my first test mask, and this is my second test one after I modified the pattern a bit to be more Year 1. After you buy the files, you're going to download and open them. I use BreezeZip for that. Click the face shell and open the STL. Now we're in Bambu Studio. You're going to want to scale your face shell to fit your face. I just used Sensational Spider-Man scaling chart and it worked for me. Then in the bottom left corner, you're going to do your supports. For supports, I just do some tree supports with an angle of 20 and it looks like this. Then you just got to print it. Now we're back in the folder. The file includes 6 different eye shapes. You can see it on the listing. I'm using the smaller triangle ones because they look very Year 1-esque. You're going to open them and scale them same as your shell. I like to cut the inside of the eyepieces just to give my nose more room. That's optional though. And then I rotate them. I found that this just helps them print cleaner. Side note, have them more aligned like this. It printed better. Then here are your prints. The supports just pop off. Now we're going to put these off to the side for a bit. Next up is printing out the pattern. Download the file. You're going to see each piece here. Then you're going to download Adobe Acrobat Reader if you don't have it already to view the pattern. You're going to open and hit print. Set the tile scale to the same as your face shell scale. And make sure it's on poster so it splits everything up. Then you're just going to print and do this for each piece. Next up is modifying the pattern. These cowls are very trial and error and very specific to whoever's wearing it. You're going to have to use your brain and make adjustments based on what worked and what didn't work for you. For the neck, I didn't change it. I just extended it about 1 inch down to make it longer. For the side/earpiece, I reshaped it based on how it fit my head and shortened the ears to make it more Year 1-ish. You can see I made the bottom part shorter here. I like my cowls tighter on my jaw. If you want a cowl that pulls off like a hood, you might want to leave it a little longer. On the original pattern piece, it curves out on the right to make a seam, kind of like the Robert Pattinson Batman cowl on the back. I smoothed that out just to make it more like the Spider-Man cowl patterns I'm used to. That's optional though. And the middle arch on it is just for marking the foam earpiece. And that right angle lip on the bottom right is like an invisible hem. The jaw will just fold in on itself so it's not like a raw fabric edge. Then you can see the diagonal line I have in my pattern. That marks where the ear starts. All my cowls use this pattern. I just easily change out the ears on top. You can see my Neil Adams side piece here on top of it. Then I added this to the pattern, an inner earpiece. It's just the ear shape but wider at the base, so it forms the inner ear slant on the cowl. Something like my Arkham Asylum cowl doesn't have the slants because the ears are drawn very thin and straight up. Then this is the inner ear foam. It's about 1.5 inches shorter than the earpiece because of the curving of your head. And you can see everything is numbered to make the sewing easier. Then you see the middle main cowl piece on the right there. I made the whole top thinner to keep it tight and not have it bunch up or wrinkle, but don't make it too thin or else your ears will be pulled too close together. The ear hole is marked on the pattern there too, and their numbers line up with the side earpiece's numbers. I also extended the end of my middle piece just to work with the smoothing of the side piece. Again, just because I'm more comfortable with that layout. And this whole piece is a half that you trace twice. You can see here the main foam earpiece is just a side piece cut off the arch. And you can see here the inner curves are just wider at the base to create the curve slant. And here's my year 1 pattern on top of the OG base for reference. My cowls are very specific to my head, which is why I recommend sewing some test cowls and experimenting with the pattern to fit it to your head. You can do whatever you want with the ear shapes too. Once you have your pattern done, you're going to trace it all on the back of your fabric. The Sharpie doesn't bleed through the other side of my pleather at all, so I mark all the numbers for every piece. It just makes sewing easier. Basically, just copy your pattern 1 to 1. And make sure you mark the bottom middle of the main piece. This pleather is two-way stretch, meaning it stretches in one direction a lot and then in the other direction a little bit. I have my neck stretching horizontally because that has to stretch around my head. And then every other piece is stretching vertically. And here's the pattern all cut out. I don't measure the seam allowance exactly, I just try to have it roughly the same around all the pieces. And now this is the space for the ears. You're going to mark the leather side of the fabric matched up with this ear space. Just a dot so you can see where to stop when you're sewing. Do it to the other end too. This is how the pieces fit together. You're going to sew leather side on top of leather side, same as the cape. Starting from the bottom of number 1 to the top of it, which is where the earpiece starts and your dot is marked. Then you lift up your needle and your presser foot and just move the fabric to the back dot. And sew down number 2. The pattern looks kind of tricky to imagine, but once you understand it, it's pretty easy. Now it's sewing time. I use regular zigzags with a length of 3 and a width around 0.8. And I just use stretch stitches on the top of the head, chin, and neck. Okay, so you're going to line up your pieces starting at the bottom of number 1. Then just sew up to your dot / where the ear starts. And then you backstitch, lift up your needle and foot, and then just connect that back dot to the end of the ear. Then just sew down to the end of number 2. And then here you can see the ear shape pokes through the gap that we left. Then take your inner ear fabric for that piece and start at the top and just sew down. Then start at the top again and then sew the other side. And make sure you're backstitching at the end of everything you do. Then you're going to fold the ear back and just sew across the bottom to close it up. Super simple. And you can see here when you turn it right side out, you got your ear. Then you just do this exact thing to the other ear too. Next, I'm sewing the middle back seam. Fold the mask in half and start at the back. Then just sew up to the top normal, and then right before the end, I switch to a straight stretch stitch as I get closer just to make sure it's strong. And next up, we're just going to trim all the seam allowance. Then I'm going to sew the neck on. Start at the back middle and just sew down. This is number 4 on the pattern, by the way. Then when you get to the end, you keep the needle in, lift the presser foot, turn 90 degrees, and sew number 5. This corner is for the natural fold on the jaw to give it a clean look. You can see how it forms that corner here, then just repeat this on the other side. Next, you're just going to go over the whole neck seam with a stretch zigzag to ensure it's more durable. Here, I'm just trimming the seam allowance again. Now we're going to finish by sewing up the neck. Fold the cowl in half and start at the bottom, and just sew up. Make sure the flaps from the corner are folded out. You're just going to sew over them a few stitches, enough to secure it down, but not so far up that you shorten the cowl's chin opening. Then go over that with a stretch stitch. You're done with sewing now. It'll look like this. Next, you're going to take your 5mm foam and trace your 2 main ear shapes. I marked mine left and right to make it easier. Then you just slide them up into the cowl. Make sure the seam lines up with the edge of the foam for a clean look, and that'll look like this. Next, you're going to see the ears seem kind of empty and wrinkled on the inside. That's for the inner ear curve. You're just going to trace that piece on the 2mm foam. Then you're going to glue the curved piece down to the main earpiece. Just pinch it a bit and line it up. It'll round into the ear shape very nicely. Have yours glued on a bit higher than mine. I put mine a little low here. And then those will look like this. I add little support pillars made of the 5mm foam inside my ears. Just cut out a little square, then slant at the top. Keep making those until it slides in perfectly. It's pretty easy. Then just glue it in. And that should look like this when you're done. Now you're going to sand the face shell. I cut these little bits off the side. You'll know what I'm talking about when you have it in hand. And I sand with 120 grit sandpaper over anything that's not totally smooth. Then I just go over the whole thing again with 220 grit and dust it off after. This next part is kind of stressful. We're going to glue the fabric mask down to the shell. Like cowl surgery, so get your rubber gloves. Preferably a lot, because you're going to switch gloves as soon as you get any glue on them. Get your spray glue and just slide the mask over the shell. Line up the nose of the cowl with that marked middle point. Then I peel back the cowl, and this part is kind of weird. I cut and tape the construction paper around what we're spraying, so the glue doesn't get all over the cowl. Then just pat the cowl down and stretch it slightly over all the shapes and curves of the shell. My side seams line up right at the outer edge of the eyes. And then you glue the bottom of the mask folded under the shell. Then you're going to cut out the eye holes. Make multiple cuts with multiple flaps to make sure it all folds back nicely. And carefully spray the inside of the eyes from the back. Then just fold all the flaps in and repeat for the other eye. You can see how it looks here. I don't glue down the forehead because that will limit the stretch of it on your actual head. And then I just use some baby wipes to clean up any glue spots on the outside. Then that will look like this once it's done. Next up, you're going to grab your eyepieces. I sanded just the edge where I had the supports on mine. And then you're going to grab your mesh too. Lightly spray paint your mesh white without clogging any of the holes. And here's a close-up on that. Then spray the eyepieces with plastidip. Those will look like this. Now once everything's totally dry, you're going to glue the mesh into the eyes. Just cut out a rectangle of mesh and then trim it to fit the eye better. Then lightly glue around the rim of the eyepieces and just press the mesh down into it. Make sure it's fully glued down and not just on either side. Then those will look like this. After those are dry, we're just going to glue them into the cowl. Again, you just put the glue around the eye, and then you press the eyepiece onto it. Super simple. And make sure that they're even, or else your eyes will be crooked. And that'll look like this once it's done. And then I also glued in a 5mm foam pad onto the forehead. It just makes it easier to wear. Now after that's all dry, you're just going to slide the earpieces back up into the cowl. These are kind of annoying now to line up because we have the shell in there. Just make sure that the edge of the foam earpiece lines up with the seam of the ear. And I don't glue my ears into the thing, I just adjust them after I put them on. And now your cowl is done. And that's it, now your cowl is done. Hopefully everyone who's been asking me for this is satisfied. I tried to cover everything. And my next costume is a Ron Friend Spider-Man. I'm thinking I can make a video just on web wings for that guy, and then I can make a video on the whole costume on its own. But I haven't made any of that yet, though. I gotta do that. So, thanks for watching, subscribe, and that's all I have for today.